What happens when the firearm you've trusted for ages is on its last legs, and nobody had the nerve to give you a heads up? Some brands that were as familiar as apple pie are now barely keeping the lights on, closing up stores and shutting down factories, leaving longtime gun owners holding the sack. In this video, we're diving into 13 firearm makers teetering on the brink of collapse and exploring the hidden costs of owning one of their products today. It's not just about who's going under. It's about how quickly they're fading. Stick around, especially for the final few. One still has a sturdy reputation, but that might just be smoke and mirrors now. Let's get started. Remington. Back in 2018, Remington was still pushing out hundreds of thousands of shotguns and bolt-action rifles each year. But by 2024, after not one but two major bankruptcies, the company was hardly recognizable. The brand limps on as Firearms, trying to resurrect what used to be the oldest gun maker in the United States. Classic models like the 870 pump shotgun and the 700 bolt-action rifle, once known for reliability, became plagued with poor finishes, extractor issues, and rust showing up on brand new guns in a matter of weeks. The first bankruptcy hit in 2018 due to soaring debt and poor quality control. Then in 2020, Remington got torn apart bit by bit in another financial mess. Owners were left wondering if their once trusty Remingtons had turned into pricey paperweights. That same year, Firearms rose from the ashes, starting a new facility in Georgia, claiming the quality was back on track. But reports of corrosion on brand new firearms haven't ceased. They keep tight-lipped about sales numbers, making it impossible to know how they're truly doing. For folks who own older models from the Freedom Group days, the outlook is grim. Spare parts are getting scarce, and resale values keep dropping. What used to be the brand that outfitted America is now just struggling to stay in the game. Colt manufacturing. Once upon a time, Colt was the name in American firearms. They gave us icons like the 1911 pistol and the Python revolver. But by 2015, the signs were clear. Colt filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after years of financial decline. The company leaned too heavily on government contracts and failed to keep up with civilian demand. Before things fell apart, customers were already grumbling about sloppy machining, misfeeds, and spotty build quality. The same brand that helped tame the American frontier was starting to lose its edge. A few years later, salvation came in the form of Czech Firearms Group CZG, which acquired Colt in 2021. With fresh investment and access to modern manufacturing, things started looking up. Military contracts helped stabilize their finances, and new revolvers and handguns began to hit the market again. Colt even cleared its debt. But old wounds take time to heal. Civilian production of AR-style rifles was stopped back in 2019 due to a saturated market. And although the acquisition saved Colt from collapse, the question remains, can a foreign parent company keep this American icon alive in the long run? Watchtower Firearms. In 2022, a new name appeared on the scene, promising cutting-edge designs and next-generation platforms. Watchtower Firearms gained early attention for their Apache handgun, Bridger series rifles, and Raider carbines. They looked great on paper, but within just 3 years, by February 2025, the company plunged straight into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's not a slow decline, it's a headlong crash. Skyrocketing inflation, high interest rates, and a shrinking firearms market created the perfect storm. On top of that, Watchtower stacked up unpaid taxes and vendor debts that got out of hand. Customer orders were delayed for months as internal systems crumbled. Even their 2023 acquisition of F1 Firearms couldn't keep the ship afloat. While the company says it's still processing limited orders during reorganization, the long-term outlook is dim. Warranty service, parts availability, and customer support are all up in the air. For early believers in the brand, it's a harsh lesson in how risky new firearm startups can be. SCCY Firearms. If you were buying on a tight budget, chances are you came across SCCY models like the CPX-1 and the DVG-1. They offered low-cost carry options that still managed to perform decently. By 2022, SCCY had cracked the top 10 among domestic pistol makers, selling over 113,000 handguns. But that success unraveled quickly. In March 2025, SCCY vanished from the scene almost overnight. The trigger? Over $249,000 in unpaid taxes. By June, the company's assets were seized and auctioned off, effectively erasing SCCY from the industry. Factory warranty support vanished instantly, leaving owners without parts or repair options. Lawsuits from New York municipalities back in 2022 had already drained some of SCCY's resources, but the speed of the final collapse caught just about everyone off guard. Now, anyone holding one of their pistols is facing a cold reality: no backup, no warranty, and no future resale value. That affordable option turned into a dead-end investment. Phoenix Arms. If you ever picked up one of these pistols, chances are you were reaching for the absolute bottom of the price barrel. Phoenix Arms picked up where Raven Arms left off, continuing the legacy of so-called Saturday night specials. Pistols built on the cheap, using Zamac alloy frames and not exactly known for stellar performance. Their most recognized models, the HP-22 and HP-25, became infamous for reliability issues and low build quality. Then, in early 2025, it all came to a stop. Phoenix Arms officially shut down all manufacturing and sales operations. There are no more pistols, no more frames, and absolutely zero factory support. You might still find a few replacement parts floating around with distributors, but that's about it. With the company gone, support has dried up completely. This closure ends the chapter on a firearm brand that always pushed the limits of safety and quality in the name of affordability. For folks who own one, the challenge now is finding spare parts before the last of the stock disappears, because they're on their own. Taurus has always catered to value-focused shooters, offering semi-autos and revolvers that promise decent performance for the money. Pistols like the G3, the GX4, and the Judge earned a solid market share for their features-to-cost ratio. But behind that budget-friendly appearance, serious trouble was brewing. Between 2022 and 2023, Taurus production dropped by over 54%. That's not a slowdown, it's a full-on collapse. The company faced widespread quality control problems, with multiple recalls sounding the alarm in the firearms community. The GX4 had a critical drop safety flaw that could cause unintentional discharges. Several revolver models chambered in. Special and 357. Magnum also faced dangerous issues. These weren't minor quirks. They were life-threatening problems. Legal settlements worth millions have drained company resources and severely tarnished the brand's reputation. Taurus continues to crank out new handguns and bolt guns, but customer trust is wearing thin. Right now, Taurus is still alive, but just barely. And with every new complaint, more buyers are turning away. Para USA. If you were into competition shooting or liked unique takes on the 1911 platform, chances are Para USA caught your eye. They were well known for making double-stack versions of the classic 1911, offering higher capacity without sacrificing that familiar feel. For a while, Para USA was a serious player among tactical and competition shooters. But in 2012, the brand got absorbed by Remington Outdoor Company. What could have been a chance to grow turned into a farewell. By 2015, Para USA had been completely merged into Remington's operations, its name and identity wiped off the map. This wasn't a shutdown due to poor sales. This was pure corporate assimilation. You might still come across aftermarket parts or used models, but there is no more official manufacturing, and factory support disappeared when the brand did. Owners of these pistols now have to rely on second-hand sources for repairs and upkeep. It's a classic case of a distinctive gunmaker lost in the shuffle of a bigger company's priorities. Jennings Firearms. For years, Jennings focused on producing ultra-cheap, small-caliber pistols like the J22, a prime example of everything wrong with the Saturday night special era. These pistols were built with the bare minimum in terms of materials and safety features. And while they sold in the millions, the entire business was set on shaky ground. Legal trouble eventually caught up with Jennings and other so-called Ring of Fire manufacturers. Lawsuits over unsafe designs and accidental discharges piled up, and by the mid-1980s, Jennings couldn't keep the doors open. The company folded, and their designs were handed off to other struggling companies that didn't do much better. Today, those pistols are widely seen as unsafe and unreliable. If you own one, don't expect to find parts or support, and don't expect to sell it either. The market for these guns has all but dried up, and many shooters simply don't want to deal with the risks. Brink Arms. If you ever bought a Brink pistol, you probably didn't realize just how much risk came with that low price tag. Models like the Brink 38 and the T380 were marketed as budget-friendly handguns, but they were plagued with major safety concerns. Brink, another Ring of Fire outfit, had a reputation for churning out ultra-cheap firearms with very questionable design standards. In 2003, the company got hit with a staggering $24 million judgment in a product liability case involving a child accidentally shot due to known flaws in the gun's safety. That verdict bankrupted the company practically overnight. By the following year, Brink was gone. Some of their tooling and designs were passed along to other low-tier manufacturers, but none of them gained real traction. States like California eventually stripped Brink pistols of certification due to safety failures. Today, owners are left with firearms that are hard to maintain, impossible to get parts for, and carry a reputation for being outright dangerous. These weren't just bad buys. They're liabilities sitting in gun safes across America. Davis Industries. Bargain-minded shooters who jumped on Davis Industries products often found out the hard way that low prices can come with a high cost. Their compact pistols and pocket derringers like the P32 and P380 were known for cycling through parts faster than a day at the range. While the brand offered a range of calibers, one thing remained consistent. Key components had a knack for failing when you needed them most. Mounting legal trouble from injuries and product failures crushed the company's finances. Founder Jim Davis filed for bankruptcy in 1992 after a high-profile lawsuit, and by 1999, the company was effectively dead, worn down by nonstop legal trouble. Davis firearms today are essentially unsupported relics. With no factory service and no reliable repair options, these guns have become more of a liability than an asset. What was marketed as an affordable alternative turned into a never-ending frustration of jammed parts and broken promises. Lorson Engineering. Back in 1993, an unsuspecting buyer could have walked out of a gun shop holding a pistol from what was at the time the top handgun maker in the United States by volume. Lorson Engineering pumped out over 341,000 pistols in that year alone. Their ultra-low-cost models like the L22, L25, and L380 filled the shelves and the return bins. But volume couldn't make up for their poor build quality. Guns routinely broke down under basic use, leading to Lorson becoming one of the most frequently returned brands in the entire industry. Legal challenges soon followed. By 1996, they were forced into bankruptcy, and 2 years later, over 20 additional lawsuits had piled up. When the doors finally closed, the brand became a prime example of what happens when quantity overshadows craftsmanship. Owners today face the same problem. No service, no support, and no value. These handguns are now remembered as cautionary tales, not trusted tools. Jimenez Arms buyers who picked up a Jimenez Arms pistol, whether the JA-22 or the JA-9, were usually looking for a budget piece, but they often ended up with a lemon. Carrying on the Ring of Fire legacy, these handguns were built with cheap zinc-based alloys and had a bad habit of malfunctioning. Critics in the firearm world ranked them consistently among the worst-performing brands. Then came the final blow. In February 2020, the company entered Chapter 7 bankruptcy, triggered by multiple lawsuits filed by cities and anti-gun advocacy groups. The allegations: major violations of federal law and ties to illegal gun distribution. Even when founder Paul Jimenez tried to revive the company under a new name, JA Industries, the federal government stepped in. The ATF pulled their manufacturing license in April 2022, putting a permanent end to the brand. Warranty support is completely gone, and advocacy groups like Everytown for Gun Safety even bought up remaining inventory just to have it destroyed. Today, Jimenez owners are stuck with unsupported, low-value guns that the entire industry has walked away from. Raven Arms. Those who still own a Raven Arms pistol are holding on to one of the original Saturday night specials that helped launch the whole idea. The P25 and MP25 became icons of the ultra-cheap handgun market, with millions sold across the country thanks to their rock-bottom pricing. But that affordability came at the cost of reliability and safety. Built with fragile materials and questionable designs, these .25 caliber pistols were notorious for jamming, breaking, or discharging unintentionally. Raven Arms ceased operations in November 1991 after a fire destroyed their factory. The company never recovered. Founder George Jennings stepped away from the business, and the designs were later passed to Phoenix Arms. Today, Raven pistols are viewed more as safety hazards than functional firearms. There's no official service, no factory parts, and no resale market to speak of. These handguns have become dead weight in many collections, fitting for a company that helped start the race to the bottom of the firearms world. These brand collapses aren't just footnotes in the gun industry. They're caution signs for every buyer. A firearm is only as good as the company behind it. When that company vanishes, so does your support, your warranty, and often your resale value. For those looking to invest in a handgun or rifle, the lesson is clear. Do your homework, check the track record, and don't let price blind you to the long-term risk.